You know, one of the things I always tell people is that these civilizations, every human is unique, but then we have our own cultures. Like the sort of temperament of someone in the culture of Japan, different from Italy, et cetera. And it's all very beautiful. It's like all the variety in a garden of flowers and people. But now multiply that almost to an infinite degree across star systems, right? And so it's really quite interesting. And even though each individual is a unique, you know, flower, but then there are, within a species, there are different, you know, type, personality, energy, focus, what have you, and even proclivities for specialization. There's one species that I always like referring to. If you look at the Japan report, that the Japan is essentially like NASA for France. And back some years ago, we were providing all this material to the French government, you know, report, the Cometa report, and all that came out. And there was this one account, very famous account, that made it in there of this farmer coming out, and he grew lavender, you know, like French lavender, like you use. And it was wee hours of the morning, and this beautiful, seamless craft had landed in his lavender field. And he goes out, and there are these really small extraterrestrial beings gathering samples of his lavender. And then they were making a whatever, some kind of some beautiful arrangement. No, what we've discovered, and of course he's going, what are you doing in my field? But that case got investigated. It was a landing case, left evidence, you know, where it landed, all that. And hello? Hello? Nope. Okay. And so what ended up happening is that people just sort of, you know, anthropocentrically project. We project what we would be doing. Oh, the flowers are pretty. But what we found through the studies is that there's the equivalent of a documentation project environmentally being done by a few of these species on what's happening to the biosphere, what's happening to the genome, the, you know, biological, genetic, the whole biogenome of the Earth, and also tracking what the rate of mutations and damage is to our genetic material, which then gives expression to the proteins and what have you that create life across different species, animal, plant, et cetera. And in the water, very importantly, samples. You know, there are accounts of these objects taking samples up and then taking out of water. Well, why is that? Well, think about it. In 150 years, we've gone from, or 200, earliest industrial age stuff, steam engines. We've gone from an agrarian culture with no chemicals, no man-made chemicals, no electromagnetic fields, and no radiation, except what was naturally occurring in radium or uranium that's in the ground naturally. And the Earth, over all those years, had evolved under those conditions. Suddenly, the scientific revolution happened, which is very beneficial. We have lights, we have a lot, you know, public health, lifespans are longer. However, there's been a concomitant explosion with science on the pollution, the radiation, the chemicals that damage genetic material and the foundation of life. And that is being documented because what they do, they can extrapolate forward much more than we do because they have knowledge and technologies that can extrapolate going forward way further than our conventional scientific programs and universities can. And that's being documented because there's a great deal of concern because the Earth is a jewel. The Earth is this precious sphere of life in this part of the cosmos that is incredibly biodiverse, may have had some terraforming influence from civilizations over the eons, and in basically 100 years mostly, in one person's lifespan, there's been this massive degradation of the biosphere, the genome damage, escalation of cancers, mutations in plants, animals, et cetera, and so on, all man-made. So all man-made. So a lot of these accounts you hear, it sort of seems now I look at things, I know I sound very Spockian right now, but from a logical point of view, scientific point of view, it would make total sense that given these civilizations have had a long-term interest in the evolution of intelligent life on this planet, so that we eventually can enter into an interstellar family or collective, which is where we are. We're at that point where we have the potential to, but it's difficult to do that if you've soiled your nest, if you destroyed your planet, the environment. And this is why so many of the ET contact experiences people have had, even with scientists I know, is very much about the Earth, the environment, protecting, fixing it. And it's fixable. So the bad news is we've made a lot of mistakes. The good news is, and we're going to get into this the last part of today before we go out tonight, is that everything we need to create that kind of world without pollution and poverty, and also to rectify, remediate the terrible things that have happened already, including obliterating, neutralizing all radioactive waste, are on the Earth today and have already been developed. They all exist already. This is a very good message of hope for young people and for all of us. Because when most people look at these intractable problems, they go, holy shit, excuse my language, we are so out of luck. There's no way to fix this. But there is. And we're going to get into the reasons why it's not being done as we go through the session. So let's go to the first slide. Oh, hello. Don't you love these musical tones? Those were made from a contact experience, by the way. And, again, I want to just quick review this. This is a really important chart. Just to give you an overview, it's different from the oval that I used yesterday, the graphic. And this is sort of a summary of the cosmology and the overlap of the two, right? So you have, 3D, the material universe, space-time, matter, light, dark energy, etc. And then you have the more conscious dimensions that are associated with higher frequency and shifting out of 3D into 4, 5, 6, 10D. And there you have, as we mentioned, for the astral spirit, ancestral, afterlife, other conscious entities that are not ET and not human. We'll get into that in a moment. Thought realms, etc. So we kind of went through that yesterday. Next slide. Now, this gets into a very, disturbing discussion. And so I'm going to bring in some things here that some of you may have heard some of this. One of the big problems is that I wrote a paper for a reason in 1995 called ETs and the New Cosmology. And that's really what we want to focus on a little bit. Is that in order to comprehend what's going on with UFOs, UAPs, extraterrestrial intelligence, you need to have some kind of guide, map of what it is that you're observing and how it plugs into a cosmology, into some kind of understanding. That hasn't been done properly, and it's deliberately been obfuscated and confused for a very good reason. For example, what's called alien in TV, movies, documentaries, UFO books, conferences, are actually several categories. So there are, 3 distinct alien. And this is why I don't use the word alien, because it's sort of a wastebasket that everything that you don't understand is thrown in. Because bump in the night, oh, it's an alien, right? Now, so let's deal with the extraterrestrial. So if you deal with this, you have all interstellar civilizations are, by definition, transdimensional. You cannot go from point A to B at the speed of light or less from another star system or galaxy in anyone's lifespan. So you have to, the electromagnetic field shifts the object, the craft, and everyone on it into a frequency and resonant field vibration beyond the speed of light through dimensions, which we went through yesterday. That's why they can appear and disappear, materialize, dematerialize like this. On radar, aircraft, it's all been documented. Now, you also have ETs, like all of you here. I don't think anyone here has an interstellar vehicle. If you do, give me a jingle. Being useful. But there are civilizations that may be similar to where we are. They may not be as, or even like we were 200, 300, 1,000 years ago. But they are conscious. And in consciousness, you can remote view, like the CIA program that Dr. Russell Targ was part of, and all those guys. They weren't using a technology assist program. We'll get into that in a moment. Those are highly classified beyond what they were accessed. And so those technologies that are innate, let's call it innate scientific technologies, we have. Elders in ancient history could see visions of distant places, remote view, or see the future. Well, so can ETs. So there are ETs that are planetary bound. In other words, they're not interstellar, and they're not transdimensional capable, but they have consciousness. They have their bodies of light. They can teleport that way, just like everyone here can, and many of you have. So think about that. So that's a different thing than a transdimensional interstellar civilization that is actually moving technologically through space-time. Does this make sense? Both exist, and you can have experiences with both. But if you don't think that there is a distinction, you're never going to make, and ask, well, did this one, am I experiencing this being from another planetary system because they're able to be here technologically, or am I experiencing only the conscious form, this astral and conscious form? Both can happen. So a lot of people never thought to ask that question. But there are many people who have experiences with genuine ETs, but they're not interstellar. I hope I'm not confusing people. Does it make sense? Yeah. Then we get into what is naturally occurring beings of intelligent, that are intelligent beings, that are in other dimensions, that are neither Earth-based nor planetary based. In other words, they're not based in the three-dimensional cosmos that most astrophysicists would describe. And these would be things like ghosts and goblins and poltergeists we talked about the other day. A funny story, well, not so funny. The man who died and was so furious and tore up the ER. But you know how that ended? I said a little prayer and connected him to the most great light, and it stopped, and he went. I could see the nurses. You know, they used to go, it was in North Carolina. I love those country nurses. They go, Dr. Greer's a warlock. And I go, oh, thank you. We had a good time. We actually had, amidst all the trauma, we had to have a good time. So now this can be a whole categories of things. We've been doing CE5 events sometimes where there'll be trans-dimensional interstellars that are there technologically. There'll be people having experience with ETs that are bound on their planet that aren't trans-dimensional technologically. Ancestral beings from that land, native peoples from that land. This is amazing, actually, and we may have this happen tonight from this sacred native land. People with angelic beings and things that may be from more lower energy dimensions where folks are troubled in the way station, you know, it's the ninth ring of hell or something, and that kind of thing. And all of that exists within the cosmology. Now, the big problem is where people don't have enough information, because it's not talked about, to make a distinction. And so some stimulus, some phenomenon, it all gets called the same thing, alien, right? So I never used the word alien. Because what I discovered in the early 90s is that that term was used to describe a multitude of very distinct phenomena from this complex multiverse, universe.